What is the ultimate curse for a person who cannot die?
Right. I mean, we usually imagine the tragedy of outliving our loved ones.
Exactly. Or, the physical horror of being trapped somewhere for eternity. But what if the true nightmare is entirely psychological?
Yeah, what if the absolute worst fate for an immortal is simply being a pacifist, forced to navigate an empire that has built an entire religion out of human slaughter?
That is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive. We're looking at an excerpt from Chasing Death, episode 21, The Immortal's Secret.
It is such a fascinating text.
It really is. And our mission today is to unpack a narrative that brilliantly weaves together ancient history, theology, and the quiet, deeply claustrophobic tension of a single man trying to remain hidden in a world of absolute monsters.
The author just dropped you into this fiercely atmospheric landscape right from the start.
Yeah, it feels very cinematic, doesn't it?
Totally. I mean, it reads less like a standard historical account and much more like a psychological thriller set in the heart of ancient Mesopotamia. We are exploring a core conflict that forces us to question the very nature of power. We have a protagonist who is entirely immune to death, yet he absolutely refuses to take a life.
And the text deliberately backs this man into a corner against, well, the most ruthless military machine of the ancient world.
To understand the sheer gravity of that conflict, we really have to examine the soil he's walking on.
Yeah, because the narrative doesn't actually begin with our protagonist, does it?
No, it starts by sketching out this massive, sweeping historical backdrop. It's a vicious cycle of creation and annihilation between Babylon and the Assyrian Empire of Nineveh.
That structural choice feels very deliberate.
Oh, absolutely. The text is laying down the architectural blueprint of this world's morality before introducing the character who will inevitably break its rules.
Right, we see this immense geopolitical pendulum.
Yes. It starts with an ancient, benevolent Babylonian king who builds life-giving canals from the Euphrates. He constructs 50 grand gates, basically turning sun-baked earth into a flourishing civilization.
But the moment his central authority collapses.
The Assyrian nation swoops in.
Right.
And they don't just conquer Babylon, they raze it to its foundations. They plunge the region into 6 centuries of total darkness.
600 years of erasure.
Yeah.
It creates this terrifying inevitability to the politics.
Yeah, one empire sharpens its spears in the dark, violently reclaims power, and then eventually grows soft on its own accumulated wealth.
Making the violent swing back completely unavoidable.
Exactly. But nested within this grand geopolitical history, the author casually threads in the supernatural.
Oh, the Abraham story.
Right. When a later Babylonian general, Nebuchadnezzar I, reclaims the city, he demands to be worshipped as a god.
As they do.
Right, and he throws the prophet Abraham into a roaring furnace for preaching about a single true God.
But the flames lose their heat.
They transform into a lush garden, and Abraham walks out without a single burn.
And notice how matter-of-fact that sequence is presented.
Yes, the text is training you to accept that the impossible is a matter of historical record here.
All right, it normalizes divine intervention, which prepares you for the supernatural nature of our protagonist later on.
But more importantly, I think it establishes the fundamental tension of Babylon. You have mortal kings desperately trying to play God, constantly humiliated by a universe that occasionally refuses to bend to their will.
Which brings us to the zenith of this empire, the terrifying society our protagonist is about to enter.
The pendulum swings back with catastrophic force.
Right, by the 7th century BCE, we get Nebuchadnezzar II, also known as Nimrod, and he completely redefines the scale of human cruelty.
He really does. When he marches on Nineveh, he doesn't just seek military victory. The text details how he torches the homes, reduces the city to ash, and actually plows the ground it stood upon.
Wait, he plowed the ground, like to physically erase it.
Yes, it's the ultimate narcissistic injury. He wants to erase their very memory from the earth.
That is chilling.
And he transforms the entire citizenry of Babylon into a war machine in just 2 years. He imports thousands of captive slaves to toil in the fields.
And he anchors all of this in the worship of stone, proclaiming himself the literal son of the supreme deity, Marduk.
The subjugation is so absolute that when he rides through the streets, a terrifying silence follows him.
Right. Looking upon him without bowing your head to the dust is an instant death sentence, carried out on the spot.
It's brutal.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because this is where the world building gets deeply psychological. His rule is defined by this dizzying contradiction.
The architecture.
Yes, his architectural vanity is astounding. On one hand, He orders a towering monument to be built entirely out of the skulls of his vanquished enemies.
A literal structure of death.
Exactly. But on the other hand, he engineers the hanging gardens for his Syrian queen, Samira, simply because she is homesick for the green mountains of her youth.
It's such a wild
He
contrast.
builds a massive network of hidden pipes to draw water up to the fourth floor of his palace. He even commissions the Well of Babylon, featuring a mechanical polished copper moon that rises from the depths to illuminate the night sky.
It's beautiful, but
But how do we reconcile that? How do we reconcile a tyrant who builds mountains out of human remains with an engineer of celestial beauty?
well, we have to stop viewing the Hanging Gardens or the mechanical moon as acts of romance or scientific curiosity.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. In the sociology of this empire, beauty and brutality are the exact same mechanism. They are both absolute domination.
Right.
Whether Nebuchadnezzar is piling up skulls or forcing the waters of the Euphrates to flow backward into the sky or artificially controlling the rising of a moon, it is an exertion of supreme will.
He is bending humanity, geography, and celestial mechanics to his desire.
Exactly. He is telling the world, I control the earth, the rivers, the life in your veins, and the sky itself.
That absolute control over life and death makes Babylon the most dangerous place on earth for an ordinary mortal.
Without a doubt.
But it creates a completely different, almost paradoxical kind of danger for someone who cannot die.
Right. A society that views human life as cheap building material is the absolute worst environment for a man whose only goal is to preserve life.
And that is the exact moment the story drops Zayn into the jaws of this empire.
The transition in the narrative is incredibly stark. We zoom in from the macro, the sweeping, blood-soaked ambition of emperors, to the micro.
Just a lone traveler.
Yeah, a lone traveler claiming to be a humble physician from Elam, arriving at the banks of the Tigris River at dusk, merely looking for a place to rest.
It feels like an intentional irony from the author. A man who heals bodies walking voluntarily into a city designed to mass-produce corpses.
Absolutely. But Zayn's instincts actually tell him to turn back.
Right, as he approaches this large, ancient mansion illuminated by a single torch, he senses the danger.
But before he can retreat, his exhausted horse lets out a sharp neigh, betraying his presence.
A guard steps out of the shadows, heavily armed, and Zayn politely attempts to explain he is just a healer looking for an inn.
The guards do not argue with him, though. They operate entirely on the baseline cruelty established by Nebuchadnezzar.
The text describes their expressions as holding predatory amusement.
Yeah, they shove Zayn into the courtyard, strip him of his coins, and steal his horse. In a culture where power is the only valid currency, weakness is an invitation for abuse.
And when Zayn calmly protests and asks for his medicine bag just to tend to his own bleeding lip, a heavy fist crashes into his face.
But Zayn's reaction is what fractures the tension of the scene.
Right, the text reveals that his blood stirs with a hidden, ancient power. He is fully capable of destroying these men.
Yet he practices the patience of long centuries. He simply refuses to engage.
Which, to a Babylonian soldier, that restraint is incomprehensible. A guard actually throws a spear at Zayn's feet and forces a duel under the threat of immediate execution.
The guard is essentially demanding that Zayn participate in the only language Babylon understands, which is violence.
Zayn is placed in an impossible bind.
Yeah, if he refuses to fight, they will butcher him, and his secret immortality will be exposed. If he fights back and kills them, he compromises his own deeply held pacifism.
So he picks up the spear.
He does.
And the duel that follows is, well, it's mesmerizing. I kept picturing Zayn as a boulder in a rushing river.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
He isn't fighting the water, he's just letting the current break itself against him. The guard attacks with savage, murderous intensity, but Zayn moves with this fluid, supernatural grace.
He parries every single thrust without ever attempting a counterstrike.
He is actively fighting to ensure that nobody in the courtyard gets hurt.
Which, ironically, infuriates the guards more than if he had simply attacked them.
Right.
Refusing to strike back in a society built on domination isn't seen as peaceful. It is deeply provocative. Zayn's defensive perfection is a subversion of their entire worldview.
And as the guard tires, his frustration spirals into a demonic rage.
So Zayn decides to end the charade. With a sudden burst of speed, he slips past the defenses and presses the cold, iron tip of his spear right to the guard's throat.
Zayn holds the man's life entirely in his hands, and he says, very quietly, I could end you now, but I will not. I have no wish to stain my hands with your blood. You are forgiven.
And he withdraws the weapon.
To our modern sensibilities, that is a profound moment of grace. but to a soldier of Babylon.
To a soldier of Babylon, it is a catastrophic insult. Mercy is a concept that fundamentally breaks their cognitive framework.
Because to accept mercy means acknowledging you were weak enough to require it.
Exactly. The guard interprets this forgiveness not as a gift, but as a supreme humiliation. He screams at Zayn, outraged at the audacity of being spared.
This clash of values makes the climax of the scene absolutely inevitable.
Zayn is exhausted from traveling all day, and he makes a single, fatal misstep.
He loses his footing in the dirt.
The guard takes the opening and drives his iron spear forward with every ounce of his strength, impaling Zayn directly through the chest.
The soldiers immediately erupt in triumph. They expect him to collapse in a pool of blood.
It is the brutal, predictable outcome for anyone who challenges the might of the Empire.
But the celebration dies in their throats, because Zayn does not fall.
No, he doesn't.
He calmly, with a steady hand, grips the shaft of the iron spear and smoothly pulls it out of his own body. He brushes the dust from his clothes, and there is no blood, not a single drop.
The sensory details of this moment are terrifyingly controlled. The wound simply closes and vanishes as though it never existed.
The guard steps forward, confused, searching for the massive trauma he just inflicted, and finds nothing.
Complete panic sets in. The guards start taking turns driving their spears into him.
Wait, they run him through multiple times.
Yeah, they just keep stabbing him. The weapons pass clean through his flesh, emerging from the other side. Holes open in his body and seal instantly behind the iron.
The physical laws of the universe shatter right in front of them. It is a brilliant inversion of power. Their weapons, the very foundation of Babylonian authority, are completely useless.
The guards drop their spears. They fall prostrate in the dirt, terrified, stammering that he is a god, a favorite of Marduk.
Which brings us to the psychological core of the chapter. Zayn corrects him immediately, stating with a weary sadness that he is no god, just a man, and that prostration belongs only to the one true God.
I found Zayn's internal reaction here to be the most fascinating part of the text.
Right. He has just survived a brutal, repeated murder attempt. He has literally proven that he is unkillable. And yet the text tells us he is overwhelmed with private regret.
The guards are frantically subservient now, giving him his bag, treating him like royalty.
But Zayn views this miraculous survival as a profound, devastating loss. Why is he sad about surviving?
Because immortality is a curse of exposure. Zayn knows from centuries of wandering that humanity only has two reactions to the immortal. You are either persecuted as a demon or worshipped as a deity.
Both outcomes strip him of his anonymity.
Exactly. By losing his anonymity, he has lost his tranquility. The soldiers couldn't kill his flesh, but they successfully killed his peace.
It proves that for an immortal hiding in the world of men, a spear to the chest is merely an inconvenience. Attention is the true death sentence.
He traded his physical safety for a total loss of agency. The text says they could not kill him, but they could take his tranquility, and that was loss enough.
So the terrified guards elevate him to an unwanted VIP status. They lead him up to the finest room on the second floor of the mansion, fetching him sweetbread, dates, and figs.
But this newfound elevated status grants him access to a horrifying truth about the building he is resting in.
Yeah, he notices the mansion is strangely deserted despite the heavy contingent of guards. He asks the sentry about the nature of the building, and the sentry whispers the dark reality.
This isn't an inn. It is a royal prison.
And it connects perfectly back to the history we analyzed at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Right. After the catastrophic fall of Nineveh, the sweeping destruction where Nebuchadnezzar plowed the city into ash, the king of Babylon brought the surviving members of the Assyrian royal family to this exact mansion.
Among them is the elderly mother of the king of Nineveh.
Her sons were slaughtered by Nebuchadnezzar's own hands, and she has been left in this house to wither in the shadows.
The narrative structure here is incredibly striking. We start the text with the macro perspective, the sweeping destruction of entire civilizations.
And we end in a tight, claustrophobic room, with Zayn lying awake in the dark, listening to a faint, trembling, mournful wail cutting through the stone walls.
He is listening to the weeping ghost of a fallen empire.
Exactly. And this profoundly grounds the tragedy of Zayn's condition. He may be entirely immune to the physical iron of Babylonian spears. His flesh knits back together in seconds.
But he is completely defenseless against the psychological weight of human suffering.
The sound of that grieving mother pierces him in a way a weapon never could. He is trapped in a house of grief, forced to confront the dark geopolitical reality of the world he walks through.
To survive forever means being an eternal, silent witness to the collateral damage of emperors.
Yeah.
The towering ambition of Babylon's kings, narcissistic men who build mechanical moons and towers of skulls, ultimately filters down into this quiet, torchlit courtyard.
And all our reluctant immortal wins for surviving their violence is a bed under the roof of a destroyed family, listening to the unending echoes of their grief.
It really leaves you with a heavy, lingering question to consider.
If you possessed Zayn's immortality, immune to the physical weapons of man, how would you protect your mind?
Right.
When you are forced to observe the endless, brutal cycles of empires rising in vanity and collapsing in blood, century after century, does your physical immortality eventually make you a savior?
Or does it merely condemn you to be an eternal, helpless witness to human tragedy?
It's a haunting thought.
That is a thought to sit with the next time you find yourself awake in the quiet of the dark. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the shadows of the ancient world. Keep questioning the narratives around you, and we'll explore another compelling text next time.